Okay, let's talk about making a hobby your whole personality.
People try a hobby. They choose one. Unbelievable. They Google it once, they buy the basic starter kit like a normal person, book a weekly session, stick to it, and slowly improve over time. Imagine doing something without it turning into a personality, a lifestyle, and a 3-year business plan by lunchtime. ADHD people try a hobby, and it's a full personality shift that can last anywhere between 4 minutes and 7 business days. Because we don't collect hobbies, we're collecting possible lives. Every time we pick something up or try something new, what we're actually doing is running a deep psychological experiment that's called, could this finally be the life that fits me? Last week, I tried yoga for the first time, and the instructor said, I can't believe that this is your first class. The next thing you know, I'm searching if I could realistically move me and my dog to Bali for £1.85 and become a wellness instructor because her comment made me feel something.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. There are times where we run into stuff. Could this be me? And there are a lot of good reasons for that, right? Because I think like most human beings feel out of place. And we look around and there's this idea of like finding your tribe. Like I remember when I was in medical school. So when I went to medical school, I was going to become an oncologist. My dad was an oncologist. He was an amazing oncologist, was one of the seminal researchers in something called graft versus host disease, was at MD Anderson, which is one of the best cancer institutions in the world, came from India, was just an amazing doctor. And so I saw my amazing doctor dad. I saw how his patients treated him with so much respect. I saw how much money he made. And like MD Anderson is gigantic. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to be some like allergist, like helping people sneeze less. I'm going to cure lives. Cure cancer, save lives. Then I went to medical school and I had a real problem. See, on my psychiatry rotation, there was something called Schindel time. And Schindel time was named after a particular psychiatrist who worked there. This psychiatrist would come and he would like sit with a group of medical students in a room. And the problem was that like he wasn't teaching us anything. We'd just be in a room with him for 1 hour a week. And we didn't understand what we were doing there. And we were like, oh my God, this guy's going to like psychoanalyze us. And so like everyone goes into the room. He doesn't make an introduction. He comes into the room and he's just quiet. And so we're like, oh shit, it's happening. These fucking psychiatrists analyzing us. He's sitting in silence. We all know he's sitting in silence. He knows he's sitting in silence. He hasn't told us what we're doing here. We don't know what we're doing here. We've heard legends and myths of this kind of thing from the senior students. We'll even ask them, what are they actually doing? And they're like, we don't really know. Some people will be like, it's a waste of time. Like, it's like, whatever. So during Schindel time, he makes some effort at conversation, but people are quiet because like, we ain't going to let you psychoanalyze us, bruh. Then he's got an apple. Starts eating his apple. And he's just sitting there and he's eating his apple. We're like, this is some experiment, bruh. This is some experiment. This is the moment I decided to become a psychiatrist. I didn't realize it yet. And then he eats this apple and he eats down to the core of the apple. And then he does something insane. He eats the core of the apple. There's just a little bit of an apple left. He takes it and he eats half of it. He's like, just bites and then he chews the seeds and he swallows the seeds. And the whole room is like, what, dude? You cannot do that. What are you doing? And then he's like, what? And then he eats the remainder of the apple. And then he's got the stem and everyone's like, bruh, what are you doing? And he's like, what? And then he eats the stem and everyone's like, oh my God. And they're like, don't you know that apple seeds have cyanide, bro? We're in medical school, man. Cyanide kills you. And he's like, really? They've got cyanide? And then he just like pops the tension in the room and then everyone is talking. We can't help them ourselves. And we've become outplayed by this guy who we knew he was going to get us to talk. We fucking knew he was going to get us to talk. We weren't going to talk. He's going to be silent. I'm going to be silent too. And this guy just eats an apple. GG, game over. And so I was like amazed. I was like, what was that? What was that? And then, I went to go meet the guy and then so I found my tribe. And so here's the scary thing is like in life, we have this idea that people find their tribe and that's what we're looking for. And this lady is talking about ADHD. And I think one of the problems with ADHD is everyone's like, people with ADHD do this. This does happen to people with ADHD. Now let's understand why. It doesn't happen exclusively with them, but let's talk about this idea of this hobby is my life. So I fell in love with psychiatry and we're all looking for that thing to fall in love with. Now, here's the first thing to understand. If you want to find the thing that you want to fall in love with, the first thing is if you are looking to find the thing that you are falling in love with, the chances are you won't fall in love with it. I hate to say this. This is anecdotal evidence. As a psychiatrist, I decided to be celibate, met my wife. Decided to be a real doctor, save lives and cure cancer, fell in love with psychiatry. See, when we are looking for something, We're so hungry for it. Give it. Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And we get just an inkling of something, right? We're like, oh my God, is this the thing that I want to do? You just get a touch of it and you're like, oh, finally I found it. Oh my God. And then what happens? It turns out to not be your thing. You abandon that hobby. You're not a chess person. So then what happens? The looking gets more frantic. Oh my God, that's not my thing, and that's not my thing, and that's not my thing. Please let this be my thing. And so the moment that something nice happens, you're like, oh, I get a little bit excited. This is me. Finally, I found the thing. You guys see how the hunger becomes a cognitive bias. It becomes rose-tinted glasses. The more desperate we are to find something, we get so excited. And that's where the ADHD comes in, because people with ADHD are more vulnerable to that. They're more vulnerable to the emotional fluctuations. There are other reasons too. But let's start with this idea of, if I'm hungry for something, if I'm looking for something and I get some sign of it, because here's the thing, remember, I haven't found my tribe. I haven't found my personality. So I don't know what it is to have a personality. So like, if I don't know what love is, and then it's like kind of like that, the butterfly meme of like, is this love? Like, we don't know yet, right? Because we haven't found ourselves. So we don't know what finding ourselves looks like. Therefore, we will look at something and we'll think, oh, this is finding myself, but it's not. It's just what we think finding ourselves looks like. In my experience, finding yourself is usually done kicking and screaming. You're dragged to it, right? It's an uphill battle, not something, well, not always. That's what's so weird, is it's kind of an uphill battle, but it feels so natural. Despite making literally 1,000 YouTube videos, it seems like people are still struggling with focus and motivation. And that's why we're launching a Doing Stuff bundle. It starts with Dr. K's Guide to ADHD, which breaks down the science behind picking a task and actually following through with it. We're also including an action-focused planner, a meditation journal, and access to our meditation tracks feature, which helps people develop a personalized meditation practice that they can stick with over time. Because progress comes from actually doing stuff, not just watching content. So check out the bundle below. So that's the first thing. Second thing. Why are we so hungry for this hobby to be our life? Let's understand what your life is, what your perception of your life is. Now we're going to talk about ADHD because I think it's a beautiful example. I'm going to be this kind of person. What does that mean? Neuroscientifically, developmentally, cognitively, developmentally, psychologically. Who we are is a string of emotional experiences integrated into a narrative. So if I talk about my life, I have this story about Schindel time. Right? That was a seminal moment for me. And what makes it a seminal moment? The emotion of that moment. I was blown away. So your life is not having chicken salad sandwich every day for 30 years. It is the emotional experiences. We string them together into a narrative, and that is who we are. Now, if you have ADHD, this becomes a real problem because chances are your emotional experiences were negative in nature. You were getting in trouble at school. You were getting yelled at by your parents. You were not getting invited to birthday parties. So then what happens is you develop an identity. And this is why there's a great study of comorbidity between ADHD and depression, where if you look at the causal relationship between these two things, 3% of people who are diagnosed with major depressive disorder will grow up to have ADHD. Or of the people who have both, 3% had the depression first, then developed ADHD. 70% of people who had ADHD will develop depression of a comorbid population. Now, every time I have a patient who's being evaluated for ADHD, one of the first things that I do in the initial intake is rule out depression. They have depression until proven otherwise. That is now my default assumption as a clinician. So the identity that you develop is not a good one, right? There's one common exception to this, which is the class clown. So oftentimes we'll develop an identity of being a funny person. I remember when I was in the 3rd grade, I had trouble making friends and stuff. So what I would do is put a pair of underwear on my head and I'd run around and I'd talk in funny accents. And then the kids would like me. So you develop this identity. Oh, I'm the class clown. And then as you grow up as an adult, that kind of thing doesn't really work when you're like 43. So you have to do something else. So now we're looking for a new identity. And then we see a hobby. And we see people who do, oh, I want to be that kind of person. Because if I find that kind of person, if this is my thing, then first of all, if this is my thing, then it'll solve my motivational problems. It'll solve my follow-through problems because I have all these problems of follow-through and motivation and I leave things behind. But if I find my thing, there's a thing out there that'll fix all of those motivational problems for me. Oh my God, I hope it's this one. The problem is that ADHD brain is vulnerable to this whole cycle. It's vulnerable to the emotional impact of not having found your thing. You have this identity of being a little bit depressed, not having found your people. But man, sometimes when neurodivergent kids get together, they get along really, really well. And they also get really frustrated with each other, but they fit. I have one kid who's probably neurodivergent, has one friend who's definitely neurodivergent, and they get along really well. But they also have a lot of conflict. It's really weird. They always want to see each other, but even then, like every time they have a play date, there'll be like an hour where they're just in separate rooms doing things on their own. But they like it, right? So we're sensitive to excitement, right? When we get excited, we're like, oh my God, this is the thing, this is the thing, this is the thing. We've looked for the thing for so long, so we're hungry for the thing, and we find it, we hope it's the thing. And then there's the allure that if this is the thing, then it'll solve my ADHD problems. I won't be that kid who I used to be, who didn't follow through with things, who abandoned projects. This thing will be different. And so we want to adopt it whole scale. We want to make it our personality. It becomes our identity. It does not become a hobby. It becomes an identity. Now, what do you do about this? I think the first thing is to recognize. So always, 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 if you ever want to break free of a pattern, the first thing is to recognize the pattern. Now, a lot of people will say, I know the pattern. I don't think so. Overwhelmingly, in my experience as a psychiatrist, people have an understanding of the pattern, but they usually miss critical elements. And there's some very interesting sort of like theory of medicine around this. So if you look at sort of like the scientific study of like how people heal, people solve their problems. Very few human beings do not solve their problems. The reason that problems don't get solved is because they don't understand how to solve them. Their understanding of the problem is incorrect. So most human beings, if they have a problem in life, it's not a lack of treatment, it's an improper diagnosis. Their understanding of the problem is incorrect, which is why our job as psychiatrists is to help them understand. I'll give you all a really simple example of this. Most people think that addictions are problems. Patient comes into my office and says, oh my God, I gotta stop drinking alcohol. I gotta stop smoking weed. Weed is ruining my life in this way, and 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 this way. I gotta stop, I gotta stop, I gotta stop, I gotta stop. They see it as a problem. So what is my job? What does weed do for you? Let's not talk about the problems. Let's talk about the problems it fixes. Let's talk about weed as a solution, not as a bad thing, as a good thing. Because the reason we get addicted to weed is not because of the problems that it causes. We get addicted to weed because of the problems it solves. But we don't see it that way. Sometimes we do, right? There's the pothead advocate. Weed is great, man. I function fine. I do great. It enhances my life. There's no downsides. It's natural. It's better than alcohol. Alcohol causes more deaths than weed. You can't overdose on weed. You know, there's the pothead, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? The pothead canned argument, you know, the party line, the party propaganda. And those people are sometimes in denial. There's something that we call pre-contemplative about the negative effects of weed. And I'm not saying that it isn't great in many ways. Like I said, it solves problems, right? So if you want to break out of this pattern, first thing is to understand the pattern, observe the pattern. Notice that I'm getting excited. If you've got ADHD, the most important skill that I teach people, I say most important all the time. I don't know if that's actually the most important. The most underrated skill that I try to teach all of my patients with ADHD, everyone wants to control their negative emotions. They want to manage their negative emotions. Learn to manage your positive emotions. Managing your excitement is the most underrated skill in ADHD. And why is that important? Because we already talked about where does that anxiety come from? Excitement come from, right? I want to be this, I want to be this, I want to be this. It's going to create a cognitive bias. The brightest flame burns out the fastest. This is the problem in ADHD. Don't make it your personality. Keep it as a hobby, right? Because the problem is we go from nothing to everything. There's no in between. And then we run out of steam. We burn up our excitement. And here's the neuroscience behind this, okay? If we look at the part of our brain that ultimately dictates our behavior, right? So we have our motivational center of the brain. This part of the brain gets inputs from other parts of the brain. It gets inputs from some parts of our frontal lobe, which are doing planning, like long-term planning. They're like, this part of our brain is like, we should do this because 5 years from now, it'll help us in this way. Then we have another part of our brain, the nucleus accumbens, right? That's going to go there and it's going to be like dopamine, bro. Like, let's do this because it's fun. Then we have another part of our brain, the amygdala, the limbic system. This is the emotional part of our brain. This is the part of our brain that tells us to do something. Like roller coasters are fun. Dopamine or nucleus accumbens is like, let's do it. But the amygdala is like, they're also scary, so let's not do it. Frontal lobe is like, let's not go to the theme park today because we have a test on Monday. All of these parts have inputs into this motivational center that makes this calculation. And then it makes a decision. Now, the tricky thing about controlling your motivation, controlling your behavior, each of these voices, frontal lobes, nucleus accumbens, and limbic system, planning, long-term planning, each of these has a different weight. Like one of them gets 10 votes, one of them gets 10 votes, the other one gets 20 votes. What determines the weight of these factions, the strength of these factions, is how much you listen to them. Just like in the real world, right? If you're the dictator and you've got 3 advisors and there's one advisor that you listen to over and over and over again, that advisor is going to get stronger. So the reason people have difficulty with follow through with ADHD is because when they get excited, it heavily influences my behavior. Therefore, my behavior depends on my excitement. And if it depends on my excitement, when the excitement wanes, the behavior disappears. This is why we start things and stop things. It's actually not about dopamine, right? Everyone thinks it's about dopamine. Nucleus accumbens is just one part of the brain. Dopamine is one neurotransmitter. Ventral tegmental area is just one part of the brain. There's lots of other parts of the brain. And because we live in a world where there's short form content, we tend to reduce and simplify things. And that's why people with ADHD struggle so much, because the truth is your brain is not all one way. The truth is that your brain is a complex organ, quite possibly the most complex organ on the planet. And there are many things that influence your behavior. So be careful, modulate your excitement, learn to rein it in. It'll last longer and you will become less dependent on it. Then a hobby remains a hobby. And then we get to the second problem, which is if my hobby is a hobby, holy crap, Dr. K, then it's not my identity. Then what is my identity? Excellent question. That is a question that you should answer through working through the question, not find a brewing kit and then suddenly the answer is found, right? Answer the question, do the work, like show your work, like in mathematics. Who do you think you are right now? Where did you get that idea of who you are? Who would you like to be? What can you do to become that person, right? And this is where I would encourage y'all to scale back a little bit. Don't focus so much on the end goal. Who do you want to be today? Do you want to be someone who reads this book or plays, you take your pick of game, right? So who you are, I mean, there's this narrative sense of identity that we talked about, integral emotional experiences, which is there. But then a big part of that, this is what I think what people don't understand, is that emotional experiences are not always big experiences. Sometimes they're very small ones. Like I remember a big one for me is when I first moved to Boston, I didn't have a car, I didn't have much money. So I stayed at a place that was not the best location. And I had access to public transport only. And so I had to walk, I had to change buses 2 times to get to a grocery store because I wasn't on a good public transport kind of line. So I used to walk for 45 minutes because taking the bus was basically the same amount of time or even longer. The bus would run every 30 minutes. This bus runs every 30 minutes. And then the other bus, sometimes I miss, and then I have to wait there for 30 minutes. So I just walk for 45 minutes every time I went to the grocery store. One-way trip is 45 minutes. I'd have to lug groceries back. Those are the kinds of little things that made me the person that I am. It's little things, right? So when you look at the person that you are today, what are you upset with? Oh, I'm a loser. I waste my time. I don't do anything with my free time. I just doom scroll. I'm a black pillar. I'm an incel. I'm a That can be changed. You don't have to doom scroll right this moment, but it's hard. Yes. What does hard mean? Hard means that circuit in your brain is underdeveloped. That means that it's an advisor that you have not listened to. And there's something really cool. Once you start doing it, see, somewhere along the way, I don't know when this happened, hard became a bad thing. You guys notice this? That somewhere along the way, when things became hard, We tried to find solutions to make it easier instead of doing the hard thing. And the moment that we did that, like it's efficient, right? The moment we did that, we ran into a very, very scary biological wall, which is that the human body strengthens through hardship and weakens through ease. The elevator doesn't give us gigantic quads. The stairs do. And we tried to make, when things became hard for us, we accommodated that difficulty instead of rising up to it. Fundamentally, this is what I think is like wrong in the world. When things became hard, we said, okay, let's make it easier for you. And if you look at like product development, right? People talk about capitalism like it's an evil thing. I think it's humans who are to blame. But products make things easier for you. Oh, we'll get it to you. You don't even have to think, oh my God, we've got 2-hour delivery now. Like, this is insane. I went to India recently. They don't even have 2-hour delivery. They have 15-minute delivery. I was on New Year's Day, is 1:30 in the morning, and I was at a New Year's party, and someone shows me these two big delivery apps, Zomato and Blinkit. And he's like, yeah, you can get whatever you want within 15 minutes. And I was just looking at it, and it's like, I can order a blender at 1:30 in the morning on New Year's Day, and it'll be at this guy's flat in 15 minutes. Like, oh, bruh, planning? You don't need to do that. Just be impulsive. We can manage your impulses. We can accommodate your impulsiveness. Oh, you feel like you forgot to get a blender and you want to make a smoothie? We'll take care of it for you. We've started to make life so easy for ourselves, right? There's so many cars everywhere, and we're like becoming obese. We're not hauling groceries for 45 minutes anymore. We're getting them delivered to our doorstep. And then we have to compensate as human beings. Since I'm not moving, now I have to go to the gym and uselessly just lift weight like this, just over and over and over again. What are you doing? I'm accommodating for the fact that I sit in this chair all day. Like, this is what our life has become. It's so weird. You guys notice this? When things became hard for us, we said, that's okay. Don't do it. We'll make it easy for you. And what do we all want? We all want things to be easy.